Don't be surprised. That sentence was like a warning that suddenly echoed in various corners of social media when a statement from Jimin began to circulate widely and triggered a wave of unexpected reactions. Not a few people think this is just a joke between members, something that usually happens between them who have been together for many years. But this time is different. Jimin's tone of voice, his choice of words, and the way he conveyed something about Jungkook felt much deeper, more honest, and for some reason, more surprising. At first, the moment just happened, without a dramatic setting, without a big stage, even without a plan to go viral. Jimin, with his relaxed expression, seemed to be opening an old story that had been kept tightly. He smiled slightly, then said something that immediately made the atmosphere change. He said that Jungkook is not a figure that many people have seen. The sentence is simple, but the impact is amazing. Netizens immediately fell silent for a moment, trying to digest the meaning behind the words. All this time, Jungkook is known as an almost perfect figure. He is talented, hard-working, full of dedication, and always appears strong in front of the public. Many consider it as a flawless golden magne. But that's where the surprise that Jimin revealed lies. He said that behind all that, Jungkook is the person who most often doubts himself. This statement seems to break the image that has been formed in the public's mind for a long time. Imagine someone who looks so confident on stage turns out to have so many questions in him. Jimin even added that there were many nights where Jungkook couldn't sleep just because he was thinking about whether he had done his best or not. This fact immediately made many people speechless. Not a few feel touched. Some even admit that they do not believe that a figure as big as Jungkook can have such a weak side. However, Jimin didn't stop there. He continued his story with a deeper tone. He said that Jungkook is the type of person who will blame himself even for small things that are actually not entirely his responsibility. This is not just perfectionism, but something much more complex. A pressure that comes not from the outside, but from within itself. At this point, netizens' reactions began to change. From being surprised at first, now becoming more emotional. Many started to see Jungkook from a different point of view. He is no longer just an idol with extraordinary achievements, but also a human who struggles with his own mind. And that's where his true strength lies. Not a few then associate this with the great pressure faced by idols from a young age. Jungkook himself started his career at a very young age, where most people are still looking for their identity. In such conditions, the demand to always look perfect can be an extremely heavy burden. And when Jimin revealed that Jungkook often doubted himself, many felt that it was a consequence that had never really been talked about openly. Behind all the analysis and debate, there is one layer of emotion that cannot be ignored. Many fans feel personally touched. They see themselves in that story. A feeling of not being good enough, the pressure to meet expectations, and the desire to stay strong even though they're actually tired. In many ways, what Jungkook experience became a reflection of what many people out there felt. And maybe that's where the greatest strength of this story lies. Not in its sensation or surprise, but in its ability to connect humans with other humans through the same experience. Jimin, with one simple statement, has unknowingly opened up a much wider conversational space about mental health, pressure, and the importance of understanding that it's okay to not always be okay. Interestingly, until now, there has been no long clarification or additional explanation from the relevant parties. There is no effort to dampen or change the narrative that has already developed. And maybe that's why this story feels so honest. Nothing is made up, nothing is exaggerated, just a piece of truth that finally finds its way to the surface. Now, the remaining question is no longer whether the fact is true or not, but how do we as spectators, as fans, as human beings, choose to respond to it? Will we return to the old expectations that demanded perfection, or begin to accept that even those we admire have a fragile side that is worth understanding? In the end, perhaps this is the moment where many people begin to realize that true strength is not about never wavering, but about how one keeps going even though they're feeling doubtful. And if that's true, then Jungkook, with all the doubts he has, may be much stronger than we ever imagined. And as the conversation continues to roll nonstop, something deeper begins to take shape. No longer just a momentary reaction, but a collective consciousness that slowly changes the way the public perceives the figure behind the scenes. Jungkook's name no longer only appears in the context of achievements, but in a narrative that is much more humane, closer, and somehow feels more honest than before. Many are starting to realize that all this time, they may only see the surface. Smiles, laughter, energy on stage. Everything looks so perfect that there is no room for doubt. But after what was revealed by Park Jimin, that perspective slowly collapsed. Not because perfection is fake, but because behind it there is a much greater effort than ever imagined. Some fans even began to associate this with certain moments that now feel different. When Jungkook looks too quiet in a live broadcast, when he laughs but quickly looks away, or when he talks about responsibilities with a slightly heavier tone. Things that may have been considered trivial now feel like a piece of story that finally finds its context. But the most touching thing is how this story opens up the side of the relationship between BTS members, which so far can only be guessed from the outside. Jimin's courage to speak not only shows his concern, but also the trust between them. Not all friendships have room for such honesty, especially in the midst of such great industrial pressure. Behind all that, a much bigger question arises about how someone like Jungkook is able to continue to stand in the midst of all the doubts he feels. Because if it is true that he often questions himself, then every appearance, every achievement, every smile that he gives is not something that comes easily. It is the result of a struggle that is not always seen. And this is where this story turns into something more than just a shocking fact. This is a story about resilience, about how someone can keep moving even though there's a voice inside him that keeps asking if he is good enough. About how pressure doesn't always destroy, but sometimes it actually shapes someone to be stronger, although in a way that is never really easy. The public reaction began to show a significant change. If previously many were focused on the surprising side of Jimin's statement, now more are talking about empathy, about the importance of giving space for idols to become ordinary human beings, about how expectations that are too high can be an invisible but very real burden. Interestingly, some comments from fans actually sound like personal reflections. They're no longer just talking about Jungkook, but also about themselves, about how they also once felt not good enough, about how they also once had doubts behind a smile. In many ways, this story has crossed the line between idols and fans, becoming something much more universal. But in the midst of all that, one thing remains a mystery: how Jungkook himself looks at all of this. Does he realize that the side of himself that he has been hiding has become a source of strength for many people? Or does he still see it as something he has to overcome on his own, as he has been doing? No one really knows. And maybe not everything needs to be known, Because sometimes the most important thing is not the answer, but the understanding that grows from the questions themselves. What is clear after all this, something has changed. Not only the way people see Jungkook, but also the way they see the struff concept itself. That being strong does not mean never doubting, but being able to keep going even though the doubt is present. And maybe that's the reason why this story feels so deep. Because behind all the spotlights, behind all expectations, in the end, we are all humans who are trying to do our best in our own way. So when the phrase, "don't be surprised," comes back, now the meaning feels different. No longer as a warning of something surprising, but as an invitation to look deeper, to understand further, and to accept that behind every figure that looks strong, there is always a story that not everyone can see, but very worth understanding.